Hey, my third grade mathematicians, I know you did a wonderful job on your line plots and your work on Mrs. G's grade 5, how many years they have been in this school. So we're going to take a look at that line plot. But before we do, I do want to review our math focus points again. That way we saw it in the first video of explaining how to put data on a line plot. But now that you've had a chance to create your own line plot with Mrs. G's data and do that on your own, I want to make sure that we are focusing on the math focus points in the lesson here. All right, so we are continuing to use a line plot to represent ordered and numerical data. So because we have numerical data with number of years, we can use a line plot to display the data, okay? And we're continuing to describe the shape of ordered numerical data. So looking at where the most data, where the least is, if we have data clustered, if there's any data away from other pieces of data. So doing that on using the line plot that we created. And then interpreting what the numbers and symbols on a line plot mean. So we know when we see an X or a number, we know what those things are, but what they stand for and what they represent. And especially really thinking about the questions that we can answer by looking at the data. Okay, so I actually already created the line plot for Miss G's class. So let me move over here. All right, so I took the data and I put each piece of data onto the line plot. So take a moment and double check your line plot. I know this was several pieces of data, and so sometimes if we're not marking or checking off, we can get a little off. Okay, so double check your line plot. All right, so now that you have done that, I want you to think about where is the lowest value on the line plot? Where is the lowest or the least amount of years on this line plot? You're right, 1. I asked you what the least number of years were on this line plot, and 1 is the least number of years. When I'm asking about the number of years, I look and see where and what my numbers represent, and it represents the number of years, and the least is 1. So what is the most number of years represented on this line plot? What is the most number of years on this line plot? You're right, 6. Again, I asked you about the number of years, and the most number of years represented on this line plot is 6, okay? So where are there a lot of data? Where are there a lot of data? I agree. A lot of data is at the beginning of the line plot. There's several students that have only been in the school 1 or 2 years. Okay, where are there a few data? Where are there few data? I agree, number of years 3 and 6 are low. There's only 2 each, but there's not a lot of students that have been in school for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. In fact, though, could I say about half the data, half of students have been at their school 1 and 2 years, and the other half have been there 3, 4, 5, and 6 years? Think about how we can describe data. We had this discussion with our bar graphs when we were working with categorical data. Okay. So how is this class similar to my class? How is it different? So here was 5th grade class data. Here was my class that I showed you. Okay, just giving you a moment to look. I noticed that in Miss G's class there are a lot of students that are new to this year or have only been there 1 or 2 years. Like I said just a few moments ago. In my homeroom I have more data that has been there for more years, 3, 4, 5 data. I'd say about half the data or half of the students have been there 4 or 5 years. Whereas that looks a little bit different than Miss G's 5th grade data. And there's Miss G's, my data. Oop, that goes back to my pictographs. Something that's similar that I noticed is that 3 is one of the least amount of years someone has been there. That students have been there. Since I'm asking about students, I look at the X's because one X represents one student. So 2 in Miss G's class, 3 in my class, and it's lowest number of students. So remember, as we are working this week, we're going to be looking at numerical data, and we're going to use all kinds of measurements to create line plots and to create representations of the data to analyze about our class. Okay? All right, guys, I can't wait to continue this learning with you this week, and until then, happy analyzing and creating graphs.